ahead and get started. We're a couple minutes late. Welcome to Finance Friday. This is the fourth installment of this regular series. Today we're going to go over the instructional costs, which is where the vast majority of the budget goes. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Vic to get started. We'll have maybe some board questions as we go along, and then at the end we'll have community comments online, and if anyone's in the room, although I don't see any yet. So, all right, Vic.
Okay, well, happy Friday, everybody. So today we're going to talk about part two of the expenditure side of the budget. Next slide. So we're going to concentrate today on staffing and personnel. We'll also talk about instructional, extracurricular programs, and student services. As we mentioned before, this is the educational financing plan for the children of Lower Merion for the upcoming school year. It supports our extensive curriculum and learning community. Lower Merion, as all school districts, we file the charter accounts for PA local education agencies, which classify the revenues and expenditures. We're going to talk today against the expenditure, the function, the objects, like we talked about the last time. We have a lot of special guests here today. They're going to highlight in their various departments what their drivers are. And obviously the largest expense is our salaries and benefits, which is 77%. But let's start with an overview of the entire budget. So as I just mentioned, the expenditures are classified in two ways. One is function, and the other one is the object. So let's first look at the function. If you go to the left side of the screen, we have the four main function categories. The blue, which is the largest piece of the pie, 58%, is instruction. That's what we're going to concentrate on today. We also will talk about a couple other functions, the 2100 function, which is students. Most of that is our guidance counselors and also our psychological services. We're also going to talk about the 2200, which is the instructional staff. That'll be our libraries, curriculum, and our staff development. The 2400 is our pupil health. So we'll talk about the non-pub and actually the public health services that we provide. And then also we'll talk about the extracurricular activities, which is a 3200 function, which is student activities. And you can see the breakout of the pie of the four main categories on our right-hand side. And then you can see the total, $348,287,617.
I'll just point out here that number of $348 million, that matches nearly perfectly the total revenues that were presented 2 meetings ago.
Correct. And that will be what we presented on Monday for the proposed final budget. If you go to the objects, on the left-hand side, you have the various objects that we have in the budget. And again, we talked about before that 77% of the pie is salaries and benefits. It's around $267 million, roughly, top of my head, of the budget. And then we're going to talk about some of the other objects. You'll see there the 300 object, which is the professional and technical services. So today you're going to hear a lot about the intermediate services. We have the 4 different intermediate services that we use for that. Also, any type of contracted professional services, subs, teachers, and so forth we use out of the 300 object. The 400 object today, most of it would be it's just maintenance for our copiers, the prints that we do on our copiers. The 500 today, which is other purchase service, you're going to hear about tuition. So you're going to hear about charter school tuition and the VOTEX tuition, and also our special ed services, APS, and out-of-district placements. That's where you're going to see the bulk of that 500 today. The 600 is our supplies. A lot of that deals with our one-to-one and our classroom supplies. You'll see that also in our books and periodicals. The 800 object today, here's a little bit, some dues and fees. Also, some of the fees related to our residency programs that we have in our instructional program. That's what will make up the bulk of that today. And you can see on the right-hand side, it just breaks out the various objects by percentage. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Schaefer. She's going to talk about the personnel component of the budget.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here representing work that was done by a lot of folks in this room and others, particularly Dr. Wilson and I, along with the superintendent, worked through a lot of these personnel issues that we're going to talk about today. But I always think it's helpful to frame why the personnel costs drive our budget. What does it look like organizationally? Because I think sometimes we forget about all of the other services we provide as an organization. And I don't want to say this, but not just what we deliver in classrooms every day to students, but everything that supports that work for our students, for families, and our larger community. So as you can see, we focus primarily on those 8,500 students, but we also, do outreach to families, regularly communicate with families, and also provide services to our residents, such as access to our facilities, et cetera, and that requires some degree of administration and upkeep to deliver that too. As many folks know, we have 11 schools, 16 total buildings across a lot of land within the district that also needs maintenance. So we have our grounds crews that maintain our facilities that sometimes, again, we forget that those are part of our organizational structure in terms of our staffing. Next slide, please. So in order to do all of those services, again, beyond the classroom, we run a transportation service, we run a maintenance garage, we run health services for students, we run what I'd like to say 11 restaurants that offer breakfast and lunch in our buildings. We, as I mentioned, offer facility use to our residents, including community use of a pool, as well as hundreds of clubs and sports teams across our schools. So beyond what happens in the classroom, we are staffing opportunities that range in a lot of industries and opportunities for students. And for today, we are focused on those individuals. That budget line that we're talking about, the big personnel budget, is our employees that we employ, that we issue paychecks to, that we provide benefits to, et cetera, while we still also have independent contractors, substitute services, and volunteers that also are part of the budget, but not in this in that pie, that 77% of the pie. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, lots of different areas that we serve, and much of our staffing is formula and need driven. So we are looking at things like class size, caseloads, square footage, programmatic needs, and as well as supports to, I failed to mention our technology department and those devices, et cetera. So much of our staffing is aligned to needs, whether it's outlined in law or in guidance that we have internally. For this year, as we do every year, and not just as a function of personnel, but our larger budget is what do we need? How do we align our budget so it meets the district goals and objectives, as well as being efficiently run, our organization being efficiently run? And so this year we're highlighting some of the reductions just in the area of personnel that in order to make the budget work for us, and also recognizing some opportunities to create some efficiencies. We have reduced our personnel allocation as reflected here. As with any time we're making changes, these are difficult decisions with a number of people involved in that work. And what we do seek to do is ensure that we're maintaining our core programs for students and those services as well that I outlined. So we were able to achieve these reductions through attrition, and so as as we do every year, we look to realize, savings and efficiencies in all areas of our budget, including personnel. Next slide.
So this slide here just summarizes, as I mentioned before, about $268,000 in total personnel costs. As Ms. Schaefer mentioned, in her slides, you get the $161 million of all of those positions that we have, also included in there's overtime and also some building subs in there in addition to those employees listed there. The $106 million, $107 million is employee benefits. Next slide. In the next slide, that's approximately about 31% for total expenditures.
Hey, Vic, can I just make an interesting comment there? Like the cost of the benefits is going up a lot more than the cost of the salaries themselves, right?
I'm going to talk about that right now.
Is that, okay, great.
Thank you for the cue. Yeah, so approximately 30%, 31%, that was at $167 million. And the three main factors, about 97% of that $106 million comes out of three factors. One is PSERS, which is the public school employee retirement system. So there's a rate that every employer, every school district has to pay to contribute to the system. This year it's 34%. Every December, so December of 2025, the board meets, they certify a rate. The rate this year came down slightly, so from 34 down to 33.59, which helps us out a little bit, but obviously your salaries go up. It's kind of mostly like a wash. Social Security, that's established by the government. We pay 7.65% for all employees. The middle one, healthcare. So we, as in practically every school district, and are seeing a large increase in healthcare. So we are self-insured. So self-insured basically is the amount of claims or times that people go to the doctors and get medical services, that is increasing dramatically. So it's over an 18% increase from this year to next year. That's why you're seeing a large increase. It's like $6 million just for our medical on our X program. We are in a consortium in Montgomery County to keep our costs down as best as we can, and all our, fees and insurances and so forth. But it's just not us. It's every district is getting 10, 20% increases. For us, it's a larger number, obviously, because we have, 1,500 people that we insure in years. That's the big driver. So that's why you're seeing that large increase. And it's probably the last 2 years, that 18% is probably the last 2 years combined, and our increase has been. So now we're getting hit 1 year is what's been the last 2 years combined. In that we're trying to look at different ways we can try to save money, but the claims are the claims, and there's nothing I can do about it. So unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. So that's the big story there. Next slide. So we're going to move on then to the 1100 function, which is the regular instruction program. The next slide. So we're going to talk about the 7.7 million, which is 6% of the regular instructional cost. We did highlight the big part is the supplies, which is our technology, books and periodicals, textbooks, and our supplies. Just kind of highlight a couple other items on there. The 300 object, most of that is for our contracted substitute service that we use. Also, there is the IB program. There's testing that we have to have done also. We have to have services for that every year, which is rather expensive. And we do have the Lincoln service provides some support there in the 1100 function. The 400, most of that is all related to copiers. We have over 75 I used to call them copiers. Now they're called multifunctional devices. If I can get into that's what they're called now. They're not copiers. And then the 500, most of that is all related to charter schools. So even though there was a reduction, there's a revision in how the cyber tuition is. We got a little bit of a break on that. We're still seeing, quite a few students still going the charter school way. In addition to that, under the 500, for our residency program, which is the instructional called trips they have, there's contracted bus services that we have to have. That's related to that program. And that's where the 800 comes in with that 124,000. It's the residency fees that we pay generally there. So we go to the next slide. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Weinstein if he wants to talk about the 600 object.
Sure. I will unpack the primary budget drivers in the next slide. Supplies are covering things that we're using in the classroom. Oh, we'll go right to it.
Okay.
My fault.
Things that we're using in the classroom, your typical paper, pencil, things that you think about in supplying a school year so that classrooms have what they need. The technology area is our technology programming and supplying, re-upping our computers annually on a cycle. And if we go to the next slide, what I'd like to do with this slide is unpack, throughout the year we present on different programming, and the goal of this is to kind of give the primary budget drivers of where the curriculum is spending their money primarily. So some of these are updating curriculum as a typical school district would, and some of them are driven by changes. For example, Pennsylvania Steels, you'll hear me repeat throughout a couple of the slides that I'll present to you today, is as the state changes standards, we have to change curriculum to match that. So that would be something that would drive our budget. Also things like structured literacy. So math and science programs, we just presented in March on K-4 implementation. PA Steels, you'll see throughout K-12, since that was a major standard change. Our textbook and digital licenses for the 26-27 school year, some of the highlights are our humanities program has updated global studies in textbooks, our world language program, which we presented in the April CCOB, our science program with AP Bio and Bio workbook renewals. And then in middle school, Math 7B8, that will be the last of our phase of our Amplified Desmos program, which we've shared with you. And that's for next year. World language, science in grades 5 and 7, and social studies. Other in math, in elementary math, which we've presented in our science, which we're going to present in May, a broader program, and then certainly in ELA as well. And then our summer programs, which are gearing up for now. Next slide.
Okay, thank you. So this slide, we're going to talk about the 1,300. This is the VOTEC, so our students go to the Central Monco Tech. And for next year, we're forecasting 54 students will be attending. That's a half-day program. The tuition is approximately around $15,000 or so per student. The 1,400 object, most of that is our summer programs, everything from SPIES and all the other programs that we offer throughout the summer are there. Also included in those other 185,000 other professional services that we have. Could be a homebound, for example, professional tech. We have the homebound services. We do budget for some of that. Also, sometimes there are some contracted events that summer programs will go to. The 500 would be tuition usually for our dual enrollment, or sometimes if you have any adjudicated or core tuition, which is dictated by the state, not by us. And then the supplies would be just supplies for the summer programs. Next slide. So this is the 1,200 function. Next slide. So just kind of give you a brief overview before I turn over to Ms. Frazier. So you can see the total budget is $68 million. 80% of that is salaries and benefits. 20% is objects 300 through the 600 objects. Just kind of give you a frame it real quickly. The 300 object, a lot of that is for the intermediate unit services that we use, and we use all 4: Bucks, Chester, Delaware, and Montgomery County. We have students going to all those. We also have OPTP services that we have from contracted services, and also any contracted subs for teachers under the special ed program would also be come out of that. The other main item, the 500 object, we see is over $8 million. Again, we have charter school students with special ed. We have the out of district and also the approved private schools that makes up the bulk of that. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Frazier.
Good morning. So as we look at this slide, it's to give you a sense of like where the funding is going to. I would start by reminding everyone that I know we're in a finance meeting and we're talking about numbers, but it is important to mention that behind every one of these numbers that you see is an individual child who has highly individualized needs that have to be accounted for within our programming, and I think it's important for us to always keep that in mind. We are at 21% of our students receiving special education services. In our December 1 counting, we had a very, a slight decrease for the first time in a long time in this reporting year. But we still are holding pretty steady at 21%. I would say there's a lot of that is, again, beyond our control. If a student has a disability and requires services, we're required to provide it. We have newly identified students coming in. We have newly enrolled students that come in. And when we have a new student that enrolls, we're required to implement the IEP that they had in their previous school placement. There are times every school year that we have newly enrolled students that go direct to out-of-district placements because that's what their programming was before they came to us. But again, it is highly variable. I share with you not just the number of our students receiving special education supports and services, but also those students that require placements outside of district schools. I'm actually really proud of this number, right? It is reflective of the fact that we've developed programming to a degree that a lot of students are able to receive their programs and their supports in their home schools. But there are students whose needs exceed what we can provide within district schools. And that number fluctuates, you see, over the course of these years, just really based on student need. PDE targets, they like districts to try to stay around 3%, and we pretty consistently, you see, are at that 3% mark. Next slide, thank you. There's a lot about what we do in special education that is mandated by federal and state regulations. As Megan mentioned, even your caseload sizes will influence your staffing. But there's also an obligation to make sure that individual IEP teams are making decisions that are best for a student. And we provide free and appropriate public education at no cost to families. And so when IEP teams for all 1,830 of those individual children are meeting, they're developing programming based on need, and cost cannot be a factor. And again, so it's, we have to really analyze trends when we think about budgeting because the students change and every individual student's needs change over the course of time. When we look at PDE policy, we've talked about this for a couple years. There is active litigation related to this, that in previous years, the application of it was services till the age of 21. Then based on litigation, it extended to age 22. That is still pending active litigation. So we are still in Lower Merion providing services till age 22 and just monitoring what's happening at the state level. But that is a cost driver. We have usually like 20 to 25 students who are receiving services after their typical 12th grade year. And those are some of your students who have the most extensive needs because they need additional years of programming. And so that is a cost driver for our department. There's also an ongoing increase in our related services costs and expenses. We use the IU for our services such as vision, hearing, orientation and mobility, some social work counseling support, and we're beholden to the costs that they attach to that. We also use some independent contractors that you hear me talk about in our facilities meetings, PT, OT, and we've seen an increase in those costs as post-COVID as demand has gone up because a lot of providers elected to go virtually. And so the in-person providers are actually harder to find, which means there's an increase in cost over time. We also have the charter school costs that we always have to take into account. For special education students, our estimate is that that's like around $58,000 per student that we are required to pay for students enrolled in charter school. We have no control over this. It's a parent choice about whether or not they enroll in charter school. And we have no then the charter school is their own LEA agency. So we have no input into the evaluation process, to the IEP process. And so it's the charter schools that are deciding, is a student eligible and what supports and services do they receive. No matter what supports and services they receive, they get the same amount of funding from the district. So you could have a very low level of support to a high need student, and it's the same. We have seen a decrease. We're projecting a decrease in enrollment. For next year, we're projecting 12 students that receive special education in charter schools, where we had been 17 to 19. So that's a good decrease. We also see an increase annually in the tuition costs and expenses. There's usually around a 3 to 5% increase. Tuition costs really vary. It depends on like the individual program, but it also depends on like the extent of the student's needs who's in that program, right? So a student, the tuition cost average is there, again, depending on the programming and the need. That does not include one-to-one aides, which can be $40,000 to $55,000 for a one-to-one aide or a one-to-one nurse. It doesn't include ESY. ESY costs can range from $6,000 to $20,000 on top of what that tuition is. And this isn't reflective of transportation when students have specialized transportation needs. So we see this as an area that is a cost driver as well over time. And, you know, as I shared previously, right now we have 49 students in out-of-district placements with a pretty wide range of student needs. I'd also say here, you know, we are a district that values inclusion, and we make a lot of efforts to make sure students can be included to the greatest degree possible. 74.5% of identified students are included at the itinerant level. This means the lowest level of support. In order to do that effectively, it takes resources to be able to do that. And so that also impacts the work that we do.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on now to the 2100 function. And you can see the vast majority is salaries and benefits, very small portion, 4%, about $500,000. Most of that is for contracted psychological and clinical services, as well as testing materials that make up the 4%. If you go to the next slide. And the two main categories is our counseling service or guidance that provide all the buildings, and also our psychological services. We have our own in-house psychologists. We also too have to supplement that with services usually from the intermediate unit dealing with that. Next slide. I'll turn it over to Ms. Fraser to give more detail.
I think one of the biggest drivers in this particular part of the student services budget is the requirement. We have a really highly qualified staff. Our school psychologists and our school counselors, our school social workers, they're doing highly specialized work, especially through the evaluation process. And so that is going to influence the cost. And as Vic mentioned, we have 13 school psychologists on staff. We always need to supplement with additional support from the intermediate unit because the evaluation load is just too high. The district is required to evaluate anytime we suspect that a student has a disability. That's our child find obligation. But then once a student's identified, we're required to reevaluate every 3 years for most students. If a student has an intellectual disability, we're required to evaluate every 2 years. And if teams notice a change, students making great progress, students not making progress, they may evaluate on a more regular basis. Our school-based psychologists are completing around 100 evaluations a year, and that's just in the 10-month period of time. That doesn't count the summer because our staff are not 12-month employees. So it's a high level of work that's done in the evaluation process. Students whose parents choose to send them to a private school, if they are district residents, they also have the right to request an evaluation to see if their child is eligible and in need of services. And so we have a fair number of families that make that request every year. I would say right now we're averaging around 80, but that's 80 evaluations that our team has to do. And it's a comprehensive evaluation process that takes 60 days to do the evaluation. And so those are really drivers in the budget for student services. Next slide, please. For our counseling services, we have 30 counselors on staff. The salaries that are reflected, that's the largest part of the counseling budget, actually. In that, we provide support over the summer that's essential to making sure that we are prepared to open school in September, that students are ready, that we have new students that are coming in, we have students that are transitioning from one grade level to the next. And so we have days built in for our counselors, varying number based on the level. Our high school teachers have more days allotted to them. But that part of our budget is almost $200,000 that we allot for the overtime work in the summer. The PSAT is also something that we're not required to do, but we have done it for quite a while for families. For all 10th and 11th graders, we offer the PSATs at no cost, and the district pays that. That's about $25,000. Again, in something that we're not required to do, but we do for families. And then, of course, our technology resources are a big part of our supplies. The Act 339 plan that we're required to have for counseling services that focuses on college and career readiness. We use our technology resources to help support with that. You've heard us talk about SCORE and Smart Future presenting to the board, and Naviance. And those are ways that we also track student work in those particular areas. Next slide. Under our psychological services, I already talked a little bit about how the importance of the evaluation process and the extra support that's required for psychological services. I would estimate that we're budgeting about $141,000 for IU support to the evaluation process. So it's important to kind of put a number to that level of support that's required to complete that legally required evaluation process. Supplies are also a big part of our psychological services because you need materials and resources to go through the evaluation process. You need a variety of assessment measures, and we use both technological resources for that, but we also still have some that are general supplies that are paper and pencil as well. So that's part of that particular budget. Next slide.
Okay, we're going to move on to the 2200 function. This is the instructional staff. You can see the same themes have. Over 90% is salaries and benefits for employees. In addition, anything from librarians to our administrative staff in our curriculum department. And then we have about 9% roughly that is for other services. A lot of that is for professional and also, supplies that are used, books and so forth. In those departments. Most of it is for the librarians in their department. If we go to the next slide, we do break out the three main functions under the 2200 that we use. And you can see there's about $3.7 million in library services. You can see that $271,000, that is all the digital subscriptions we have in the libraries, also the software we use to keep track of all the books, and then also the replenishment that each of the 11 schools do throughout the course of a year. You can see that's varied anywhere from $250,000 to $320,000 over here, depending upon their cycle that they're on. 2260 is the curriculum services, and you can see we have some contracted services, some consultants that help out with our development in our curriculum, and also some supplies and books that we have under the 2260, and then 2270, which would be our staff development. So you can see the bulk of that is salaries and benefits. So we do have a lot of employees that get paid extra to do different staff development throughout the year. And then we just have some other expenses they're dealing with. Consultants are used to help out that come and do PD days and so forth. That is in there, and other supplies that we use in the staff development department for the year. If you go to the next slide, I'll turn it over to Mr. Weinstein.
So the last slide I presented was talking about purchases of programs that we buy. That is not to be confused with the curriculum. The curriculum is driven by curriculum supervisors, who I want to thank for joining me today. We're sitting behind me. in conjunction in supporting teachers to bring the programs to life. They've said in education circles that to deliver a K-12 curriculum, it may take 22 years. So teachers get together and agree on what are the most important things that students should learn, what we measure, and how do we ensure learning. And a lot of that is driven through, like I said, our supervisors working with teachers. So curriculum writing this year, some of the highlights are, as I shared before, our PA Steels and continuing to align with the state expectation of their standards. Including biology, humanities, to unpack that a little bit more. That's middle school alignment with English and social studies. That is our global program at the high school. And then financial literacy, personal finance, which we presented earlier in the year, which is a new course from the state that we're continuing to build and write. Professional learning is the investment in the teachers to support curriculum, and much of that budget area from our curriculum team is going to support the new program implementations, primarily in our new elementary math, our PA Steels, and also continuing to get structured literacy support. And then continual refinement of our district system priorities, which are our professional learning communities, which is our teachers in collaboration, working in collaboration, universal design for learning, which is planning for learning on the front end, and looking at barriers and creating curriculum that more students can access. And then when students aren't learning in our tier 1, what are our systems of support that we have? So that is baked into everything that we do when professionals come together and think about our curriculum. Content-specific professional learning, again, math, pedagogy, and program implementation, structured literacy, PA Steels, our data software that supports our programming, which is primarily Linkit, Swiss, and PowerSchool and Schoology, and our professional learning software, which has been PA ETEP and Frontline. And there are primary drivers in the areas of 2260 and 2270. Thank you.
So next we'll talk about the 2400, which are health services. Again, we have certified school nurses. We have school nurses also provide to not only the 11 public schools, but also non-public schools in the community. And when we do, I guess really the bulk there, I mean, pretty much the same total and the other objects from this year to the upcoming year. A lot has to do with shortage of staff, that we have to contract out a lot of our nursing since we have a shortage, but also includes our doctor consultant that we have on there. And the other is just supplies we have just for the students throughout the year. Go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Frazier.
So as Vic mentioned, we provide those direct services and supports to 11 district schools and 20 non-public schools, varying degrees of support to the non-public schools. Some of the local schools hire their own nurses and decline services from the district, but the district does provide a level of support. This also is like about highly qualified staff, right? We have certified school nurses who serve a really critical role in each of our schools. There are Department of Health mandates that we're required to meet related to screenings and assessments, such as like your vision, your hearing, growth. We have to keep up on the immunization pieces of it, dental assessments, so mandates that we have to follow from the health department, but also PA school code. Our health services team also provides a high degree of support for students with disabilities who might have medical needs related to their various disabilities. And I would point out sometimes I think people think students with disabilities only applies to students receiving special education services, but this could also be students who have a 504 plan. They have a disability, but they don't require special education. We have right now about 750 students with 504 plans for various needs across the district, in addition to the students receiving services through special education. And then our health services team are really critical team members in our crisis and emergency response. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out like what valued team members they are. We always hope that each student in our schools have a go-to person, have at least one person they're comfortable with and go to. And there are a lot of times that is the school nurse. They serve just a really important role in our schools besides just putting on Band-Aids. Next slide. The salaries are a big driver, and an important part of that is the agency support we need. We are persistently short-staffed because there is an ongoing demand for nurses. And so we do need to use agencies to help support the work that we need. That includes work that we need for our extracurricular activities. If a student requires nursing support per their 504 or IEP, we have to be able to provide that support during all district extracurricular activities or athletics. And then we also have additional support for our summer programs, and so that is an additional cost to the district. We budget for the direct services through agencies. We're projecting a cost of around $400,000 to be able to meet the needs of the district, so to put a dollar amount to that for everyone. It is a high need. We have a lot of trips, like athletics, extracurricular activities, one-to-one nursing needs. We have students who require a nurse during transportation, so we have to provide that. And then our supplies are also a cost to the district. Between what we provide to non-public schools and the district, that's a little over $50,000 just for general supplies and mandated screening supplies. We have seen with the cost for our agencies, similar to what I shared with related services, those costs continue to go up because of demand with our agency fees.
Okay, our final function we'll talk about is the 3,200, which is our activities and athletics. You can see about 75% is personnel costs. That's our coaches, our advisors, our ADs that provide those programs. The student activities are called the clubs. That cost is about $2 million, and the other $4.8 million is related to our athletic programs. The athletic programs are at the secondary level, the middle school, and the high school level. Just kind of highlight a couple things. The 300 is professional and technical services. The bulk of that is our athletic trainers that we have, which are contracted out. That's over $430,000 expense next year. And the rest of it really is just the referees and the umpires and all the officials that get paid to work the games. The 400, most of that is all to the repairs. They have to do maintenance on all the equipment for the athletic program. The 500, the bulk of that is really contracted transportation services. Unfortunately, the timing of our day, we have to contract out most of our athletic and our club trips. And the 600 was mostly all our supplies we need for the athletic program, from football to baseball, you name it. All the sports get supplies. So that comes out to $6.8 million. And you can see the pie chart on the right kind of breaks it out in percentages. So that leads us to the calendar. So this is the fourth Finance Committee meeting that we've had this year. There's one remaining. In May, we'll talk about reserve fund balance and our capital transfer. In the meantime, on Monday's board, which is February 20th, the proposed final budget to be in compliance with Act 1 needs to be provided and voted on by the school board. So that will be presented on Monday. We had the $348,000 plus expenditure. That's what will be provided. And then on, I think it's June 15th, I think it's the 15th, that Monday, will be the final adoption of the budget for 26-27. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
All right, well, thank you very much. So there you got it. Takes $1 million a day to keep this ship afloat, right? And now you know where all the cash goes. Do we have any board questions? Actually, did Sarah call in? Is she, do we know, is she online or? Well, Shane is not on this committee. Is Sarah? Okay, do we have any board
I just
questions
want to take one
from
beat about
committee
me being
members?
here real quick.
You're the president, so.
Okay, thanks. So just to make sure everybody's clear, because I know there's been some confusion about who's on which committee. So just officially, this committee is chaired by Todd and Sarah Thomas, Todd Rickey and Sarah Thomas. Anna Schrack and Juanita Kerber are officially on the committee. I, as the president, kind of as the floater. I can go on any committee, but I'm typically just a witness to the committee unless one of the other 4 members is not able to join the committee. And then I can step in as a committee member. It only becomes really important that I am on that committee when there is not a quorum. And there is not a quorum unless there are 3, which is why I've been showing up to a lot of committees this week. So I was on facilities yesterday to make sure there's a quorum, and I am here today to make sure there's a quorum because there's only 2 of you. So I am officially on the committee today, and I'm really excited because this was enjoyable, and I do have questions, but let's start with the official members first.
Juanita, did you have?
Hello, everyone. I think for transparency and also to the needs of the community, I think it's important to list someplace the other services and objects that you mentioned, because oftentimes you'll mention it during the committee meetings, but that breakdown may be forgotten someplace else, and a member of the community would have to review to hear it, and it may not be heard clearly. So I think that's something important.
Yeah, I don't know if it's easier to do that in this format or through the list of bills each month that come through, or, I mean, I get the point. You know, we have these big buckets, they're just called other, and it's sometimes can be
Well, I think,
difficult.
so on the presentation, we break out the object, and then we put in parentheses kind of some of the major items, like
Right.
600 energy supply. We do IU service, we do kind of note those in the presentation on Monday.
I don't know what the best way to do. Like, if there's a specific, if a community member, board member has a specific question about a specific cost object in there, I mean, certainly send it in. We'd be happy to get the more granular detail on whatever. There's a lot of them, so it's a little overwhelming to think of
Yeah,
putting
there-
everything out there.
There's
but if
several
there's-
thousands of accounts.
Yeah, I just don't know
mean,
how-
It's not like,
Yeah. Curry, if you had.
Vic has been breaking this down for years. At first, it was like really big buckets. I have a few questions. I thought this was really helpful, and I will say each year I think it gets clearer and clearer, so I appreciate it. But I do think it's really important. Every time we get a new group of board members, we're getting the clarity at a better level, because you do get used to looking at it, and then you forget that clarity is needed to a different level. So thank you, Juanita, for that question. It's really helpful. I don't have as many questions as I normally do, so I think you should be happy about that. Okay, slide 18, 19, I think, Kimberly, this is more directed at you. You broke down a little bit, like age 22, you're keep on looking at the pending litigation around that, and that has like increased some of the expenses. And then post-COVID, the increase in cost, that was increasing some of the some of the cost. The charter schools are increasing costs, but there is a pretty significant jump in cost. It looks like it's around 14 million for 140 kids. But that jump in number of kids, like if I look at slide, it looks like slide 18, 19. I'm just gonna go back to it to make sure I'm looking at the same numbers. Make sure I'm on the same page. When I look at those numbers, they look like they really jumped up. Like the kid numbers jumped up in year 22 to 23. It went from 1690 to 1804. Like that's where the significant number jump happened. But the cost jump really happens closer to year 25, 26 from, like that's, like it gradually goes up. So the number jump happens later, but the cost jump gradually happens. So what are the other factors going on there, to add to what you already explained?
Yeah, I would just, maybe I didn't say it clearly enough. Every individual student has varying needs. So within those numbers of growth, one year you could have a higher number of students who only get one service. You might have a a higher number of students, they get more intensive services and maybe need multiple related services in addition to the special education time with special education teachers. So it really is variable with every individual student need. And then again, like your tuition costs within every one of those, like for each one of those students, it might be a different student in a different program that's more expensive because of their level of need.
So if I look at these numbers and what you're saying, what you're telling me is the level of need is exponentially growing. That's what I hear when I look at what you're saying and look at these numbers. That's what I can infer from
Yeah,
those
and
two
we see it for our
variables.
students who are in out-of-district placements, but also students in our schools as well, that there seems to be higher medical needs, a higher degree of needs related to just their disabilities in general, requiring a higher degree of support for students. Yes, that is accurate. And that's not unique to Lower Merion. Other districts have experienced the same thing.
I think as we go forward with this, I think it might be helpful to understand that in a breakdown, because we're lumping the kids together and we're not seeing the variation and I don't want to do this in a way that risks the privacy of the kids, but we're grouping 1,800 kids together and saying all these kids need $64 million worth, or if I'm getting the number right, this chunk of money, but the variation of needs is very dramatically different within that. And when you talk about kids being out of placement, need a one-to-one to Storts, that's the same amount of money we need in placement. So I think that's a little tricky to say when you say a kid outside a charter school or needs a one-to-one placement, kid inside needs a one-to-one placement. So I think that's hyperbolic to say because this kid inside still needs a one-to-one placement, so.
Yeah, it changes based on, but it could change, right? So that's not actually accurate that if you need a one-to-one here, you need a one-to-one there.
But they could.
It depends, they can, but it depends again, like on the full program. And so it varies. I think what I would be cautious of, right, is like when we think about reporting out, student privacy, yes, and I have some hesitancy with putting dollar figures to individual children. Just because it's
But let's not use
more.
that as a shield. Let's analyze the data to understand how are we examining the work that we're doing to give the best services with the most impact. So let's be cautious that we're not using that as a way to truly understand how we marry appropriate services with appropriate impact. Because that is also a tool to use to really analyze how can we measure this.
Agreed, yeah. I
So,
agree
and
with
this is hard to analyze because it's not telling us enough of the story.
And what you don't see is like the thousands of line items within our budget that my team is every year painstakingly looking at in comparison to programming and resources that are put into place and placements. We do that internally to sit publicly and go through. I mean, it's literally like thousands of line items, right? That we're like looking at it to a very detailed level, all of the places where we are spending money.
Yeah, back to Winnie's point, it's hard to see the forest for the trees
Yeah.
when you can't see the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thank you, very helpful. Your point on page 23 about the 60 days, it takes an evaluation to be 60 days, just to clarify for the public, you are also under a time limit. When a parent requests an evaluation, you have to do it in a certain period of time.
You have to respond. So when a parent makes a request for an evaluation, the district's required to respond within 10 days in writing. Is the district going to agree to do the evaluation, or are we going to deny the request? So that's a requirement. Once we agree to do the evaluation and we issue a permission to evaluate, as soon as we receive a consent from the parent on that form, we have 60 calendar days to do that evaluation. The calendar days stop in the summer because we are not a 12-month system, but otherwise run consecutively, like the 60 days do not stop over winter break or spring break. So you have 60 days to do the evaluation. It generally takes that amount of time to do a comprehensive evaluation.
Thank you. There was confusion in last year from parents in the community that there was no time limit. There was an unlimited amount of time that the school district had to do an evaluation. And I just wanted you to put it on public record that there was not. That there was a law behind this. So thank you for giving me the opportunity for you to put it back on the record. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Dr. Rinelli, we're not using Naviance next year. Correct. I just heard that out loud, and we're not paying for Naviance next year.
Well, the only exception to that is like for our current juniors, we are going to have a small contract with Naviance that we're putting in front of the board in May. That's a small portion of what we've done historically because we don't want to disrupt our current juniors who are on the pathway out, right? And so there will be a small piece of Naviance. I just want to say that for the clarity.
60 calendar days, so meaning business days, not weekends.
No, calendar.
Calendar.
So
Thank
it
you.
includes,
Sorry.
yeah, it includes, yeah.
Weekends and holidays, good. Good question, Juanita. So what do we mean by calendar?
In our world, it's like, it's either calendar days or school days.
Great, thank you. Mr. Weinstein, did you want to add what we are using instead of Naviance? I thought you were going to get on the mic there. Yeah, okay, you look like you wanted to chime in. To? Okay, great, just want
Score
to clarify,
and
we're
Smart
using
Futures.
something.
Yep. Score and Smart Futures is the
Great.
alternative.
Promise.
I was making sure my microphone was off. Now I'm talking while it's off, so I'm just backwards on the mic part.
Almost done. Real quick, and I don't know who answers this one, but it's not Kimberly, so this is not going to you. I noticed that there was a small reduction in the activities, and I know we talked a lot about this in policy. We were cleaning up the activities fund. This might be around Ms. Schaefer, so looking at you. Can you talk a little bit about how we talked through activities and this might not be you, but we were reducing the activities fund to kind of clean up after-school activities. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Maybe not.
I can speak to the work that we has been building over the years to ensure that, our budgeting around these items has some consistency and with practice with how we allocate, staff to support these activities. We did talk about this in policy. This year, I'm not sure which reduction you're referring to because I think it's actually an overall increase in activities and athletics, which largely reflect just the increase in stipends, et cetera, as well as the training costs that Vic spoke about earlier. So that's where we are this year because we did a lot of that realignment and adjustment last year. So we kind of replicated that thinking and logic into this year as well.
Yeah, there's about a $400,000 decrease from about 4 years ago, 5
Yeah.
years ago. I can't speak to that, I wasn't here, but over the past 3 years, there's a small increase to, again, take care of salaries and benefits. I think if one of the crux of the questions is that are we offering the same breadth of activities and things to students, and we feel very strongly that we are.
Great. And something like uniforms wouldn't be in that fund. That would be more of a capital because they last so long. Sorry, I know that's a weird question.
It comes out of the 3,200.
Really? Even though they last for like 20 years?
You can't depreciate uniforms.
Can't you? Okay, thanks. That was my last weird question. I'm done.
Ms. Frazier, I just had one question on the agency nursing. That's pretty expensive. So it sounds like it would be more cost-effective and actually probably better for the kids if we had more full-time nurses. Are we at that point where it'd be better to hire more nurses, or it's still better to agency these?
No, we prefer to have our own staff.
Do we have those positions
But
posted?
we do.
We
If you
Okay.
monitor, we almost pretty consistently have some nursing positions posted because we're just not able to fill everything that we have needs for. So we have vacancy both certified school nurses and our staff nurses. So we have to. And you'll always have some level, I believe, of agency support for some of the things like I need a nurse on a bus to an out-of-district placement that's going, 30 miles. Those are harder to fill with our district staff, so sometimes you'll have agency support, but it is about demand and our ability to hire highly qualified staff as well.
Community comments, Ms. Schreiber, I'm sure there's probably something.
Sorry, I forgot to sign in.
5 minutes.
Hi, Tanya Schreiber.
5 minutes.
I'm only going to be like 2. 5 minutes, sorry. Tanya Schreiber, I'm from Penwyn. And my question is, as I look over the monthly list of bills, I try to reconcile kind of how they align with these budgets. But the challenge I face is that on the list of bills where it says object, there's a number, but the function doesn't align with these functions. So I was wondering, I'll give a couple of examples, but I was also wondering whether or not I could get a copy of how each of the functions as listed in the list of bills align with the functions listed here. I've looked, there's no kind of a master document at the state level, so I can't find anything public on this. And in this case, the ones that I'm curious about is back to the 12 million, $13 million buckets. Life skills support is life skills support is object number 563. I don't know if that's in function 1200, 1300, or 1400. Legal and accounting is listed as object number 330. And it's a big enough number that I would hope that that would be available on hand, if not today, then by the Monday meeting. Sensory support is another one that's at 563. I'm going to assume that's the same 563 as life skill support. And I'm wondering if those are all in the 1200, 1300, or 1400. My guess is that life skill support, sensory support, and legal and accounting are all rolled into the 1200 professional and tech services. But it's a pretty big assumption to make when that's a $5 million number and an $8 million number. So I was hoping for some clarity in that. And again, if I could get a list of functions and list of bills as compared to functions in the budget, that might make all future Q&A from Tanya Schreiber a lot quicker. Thank you.
Yeah, as far as list of bills, the information you're looking for is in the state accounting manual. So if you go to the state accounting manual, it tells you the function and the description. And I believe we have the description in the list of bills as opposed to the function, because that's what we had in the past. People wanted a description, so we put the description in. So you can go to the state accounting manual. It's several hundred pages. It'll describe everything you want. As far as the legal is a separate line item. We talked about that last time. It's under the 2020. We had actually a separate slide on that that showed the legal costs, so you can see what the total legal costs for anything the district does in the district. As far as learning support, autistic support, and so forth, that's all in the 1200. There are different sub-functions that we have to, per the state accounting, you might report that, and that's reported because there's certain legalities that we have to do and confidentiality, so that's why we lump everything in the 1200, because there's legal issues around confidentiality by disclosing some of that information.
I'm sorry, if you can send me a copy of that, I may have the wrong version, or it may not, you said that the state has.
On the website, go to the website. PD's website, they have the state accounting. You can download it for it has all the information about accounting. Go to the PD website.
Okay, so if I look at the P website, it'll say life skill support 563, and it'll tell me whether it's in 1200 or 1300?
Can we post it on, when we post this, can we put like a hyperlink to it on board doc, like the board docs? Can we just do that? Amy, I'm looking at you.
So if you go to, I guess, the second slide, there's a hyperlink.
Perfect.
So you
Okay.
can click on a hyperlink, and what it does is it lists every function, all the sub-functions, and then it'll tell you all the different objects, what the different objects mean. So that's how the state accounting, depending upon the function and what's being provided, what function it gets linked to.
Okay, and then there was one final account, prepaid expenses 0181. What would that be to?
It's a prepaid expense. So for example, if you have to pay a upcoming school year, so for example, 7-1, there's a renewal of a subscription. The company requires us to pay make the payment in June. It's in the prior school year, so it's a prepaid. You're paying it in the prior year for service in the upcoming year.
So if it's a prepaid expense and it's listed as 0181, how does that then reconcile with what the prepaid expense is actually paying for? So like if there's $200,000 in prepaid expense, how can I see which of the chart of accountants, PA local education agencies, that $200,000 is getting assigned to? It sounds like it might just be a pot that goes to a bunch.
It's the way the accounting is, you have to record it as a prepaid expense. I mean, I can't, that's just the way we have to record it.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm just signing in. I'm done.
Okay. Again, if there's specific questions about specific cost objects, please send them through community comments. We'll do our best to get to the granular level of detail that anyone's looking for. We'll look forward to the next meeting on capital transfers, sum everything up next month. And with that, we'll end the meeting. Thanks.